Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's time for another video. It's time for some updates on what's happening in the world of Celtic. Not too much, to be fair, but we've only got one game left before the World Cup break. Saturday, of course, 3 o'clock. That'll be the last time we see Celtic playing competitive football for quite a while. But in between, we've got the Sydney Super Cup. We've, of course, got the Qatar World Cup, which takes place over the next month or so. It's quite an exciting time for football. But let's talk about Celtic. Let's have a look at the news, including the war of the words between Ange Postecoglou and Scotland boss Stevie Clarke. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated on the road to 37,000 subscribers. Anyway, Celtic last night in a 2-1 victory over Motherwell in our penultimate game before the World Cup break. It takes us into that game against Ross County on Saturday, which will hopefully see us maintain or even extend a 7-point gap at the top of the table. A game last night in which I didn't, wasn't the most entertaining watch in the world. It was one of those ones that I actually found incredibly difficult to talk about after it finished, coming on the channel and doing a match review, because it was quite standard. It was a Celtic win. We controlled the majority of the game. We weren't dazzling, but we weren't bad either. It was just one of those games. It was a typical midweek Premiership game. If you could just kind of draw or simulate a game out in midweek in the Premiership, it would have been that. But we looked good. We scored 2 good goals as well. We should have maybe had one more with the bizarre VAR angles. Look, listen, I'm not going to sit here and argue that it wasn't offside, but God almighty, they need to improve the VAR in this country. I'm not going to rant again like I did last night. If you want to see my rant, feel free. But a couple of incidents from that game last night, once again highlighting where the shortcomings are when it comes to the VAR system. Now, will they improve on that over the course of this break? They've got the World Cup to sit down in their wee office, the SFA, and figure things out, but they really do need to improve the standard of refereeing in this country. If this VAR was brought in to kind of highlight the problems over the course of 90 minutes and correct these problems. And one thing it was meant to do, and one thing that Crawford Allen kept banging on about, was it was meant to bring consistency to our game. If anything, this VAR has brought even more inconsistency to Scottish football. Decisions that don't make any sense, angles that are not helping us, and complete contradictions from what might happen the week before. There has been handball situations across all the games that have been played since VAR has been brought in, which have been deemed penalties or not penalties, for example, but then the next week it changes its decision. It's vice versa, where it could be an identical incident. The inconsistencies now with VAR in place are worse than what they were before VAR was there, and that's the exact opposite of what this is meant to do. So they need to sort that out. Take some time over this break, SFA. Think about it. Think about it. But brilliant last night from us, of course. Goals coming from Kyogo and Dyson Maeda, 2 of the Japanese boys. Obviously, Dyson Maeda heading to the World Cup with Japan. Fantastic for him. And I'm glad that he scored last night. Ange Postecoglou, full of praise for Dyson Maeda last night. And obviously a player who's came under a lot of criticism over the past few months. He was one of the players who, especially in the Champions League, was looked at as one of the more disappointing players. Someone who probably could have got us more from the chances that he missed. And someone who a lot of people, maybe including myself to an extent, were ready to say, right, maybe we should drop him, maybe he shouldn't be considered as much. But I think he shows his qualities as a player. I never thought that we should have completely binned him. I thought he needed some time to decide. I didn't think he was better than some of the options that we had. But confidence is key in football. And I think over the past few weeks, we've seen Dyson Maeda get more confidence in his game. And one thing that will probably help him with that is that World Cup selection. The fact he is heading to Qatar. Kyogo and Rio Hatate, of course, have been left with Celtic, but Dyson Maeda has a fantastic chance to go on the biggest stage of them all and show some of his qualities and how good a player he can be. And hopefully that'll make him come back to Celtic knowing how good a player he is, because he is a great player. We signed him, he was a top scorer in the J League, man. He's obviously good enough to be going to the World Cup as well. And Ange Postecoglou, as I said, full of praise. This is what Ange had to say about Dyson Maeda last night. He works so hard for the team. He's surrounded by other attackers who are different to him. He doesn't get the headlines, but the contribution he makes is immense. I left him out for the last couple of games to freshen him up. He was outstanding again. The subs coming on were really important for us. He finished it off. At the weekend, it was Kyogo and Leah Labada. The lads have a good attitude about rotating the team, which is not easy because they all want to play all of the time. So Ange's talking about leaving him out a couple of games to freshen him up a little bit. I think it's done him the world of good. I feel like I don't know how much Dyson Maeda will read into the criticisms that he gets by the media or social media, because of course he's not a native English speaker. It's not as if he'll be reading the Daily Record on a Saturday afternoon. But it's good that he's had that couple of weeks to go away. He's had a chance to go and train and work on maybe some of the issues that people have been complaining about, and he's came back looking stronger. And last night I thought, no, he'd take his goal out of it for a second. I still thought he looked really, really good. What he was bringing to the team, his pace. I thought he was doing well at getting into certain areas of the park. He was driving with the ball pretty well. I think these are all things that were probably lacking from his game for a few games in a row, and he just needed that little break to sort that out. So I'm very happy to hear Ange Postecoglou's praises for him. I think it's good to see him in the team and scoring goals, and he's obviously got a massive contribution to this side, and he'll continue to do so under Ange. Right, so let's talk about the biggest story of the week, and that is the war between Ange Postecoglou and Stevie Clarke. I say war. It's not so much of a war, but I just wanted to talk about it because it is an obvious talking point in Scottish football at the moment. So, Steve Clarke disappointed in Celtic and Ange Postecoglou for the fact that none of the Celtic players will be travelling with Scotland for their international friendly in the next couple of weeks. Disappointed is the word Steve Clarke used. Right, so let's kind of run through this. Scotland organised a friendly with Turkey a couple of weeks ago to end off their year. Of course, Scotland nor Turkey will compete at the World Cup, so they wanted something to do. There's an international break, or not an official international break for these. Of course, the World Cup is technically an international break, but for other countries, not an official international break. They've organised a friendly with Turkey, and Ange Postecoglou has turned around to Stevie Clarke and he said, no, none of my players are going. We're going to Australia. We've had it organised for a month. See you later. Steve Clarke left disappointed and complaining about it. Now, I can understand why Steve Clarke would want some of the better players on his side. Tony Ralston, David Turnbull, Callum McGregor's injured, so he won't be there. Greg Taylor, they're three good players, 3 players who obviously would be good use to Scotland and would have an impact if chosen to play in the game against Turkey. But a non-competitive friendly match that was organised a couple of weeks ago against Turkey, in which, let's be real, probably none of our players will even feature in. I think Steve Clarke's got quite the cheek to come out and say he's disappointed. Celtic have had this friendly trip organised to Australia with the whole squad for, close to a year now. I think it's been a long, long time. That they've had. It's not maybe close to a year, but it's been quite a while. A good few months anyway. I think it was the start of 2022. It was initially announced and rumoured. But Steve Clarke moaning that they're not going. Tony Ralston, Greg Taylor and David Turnbull are 3 players who don't even get into Steve Clarke's teams for the best of times in non-competitive games when it is an international break. Never mind when it's an organised friendly that's existed for 2 weeks. So I don't really understand. Clarke says that, the clubs don't have to release their players. Celtic have chosen not to release their players for this game. Fair enough. I'd understand if you felt hard done by not having the Callum McGregor who can't even play, but I don't think there's much of a big deal about it. He's going to play a friendly against Turkey that's absolutely meaningless, that not a lot of people will even have eyes on with the World Cup happening at the same time. To be missing a couple of players when they can bring other players up for a chance, I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think Clarke should get his knickers in a twist. But at the end of the day, I don't even think Clarke's reaction has been that bad. He said he's disappointed, they'll take it on the chin, fair enough. It's the reaction from wider supports from other clubs and Scottish people in general saying that it's entitlement and Ange Postecoglou's in the wrong and all the rest of it. How though? Why? Why is he in the wrong? And I'm not saying this as a biased Celtic fan, right? This is a game that literally does not matter. Who even cares? As a Scottish fan, as a Scottish citizen, I don't care what the result is with Turkey. I'll have more interest on the World Cup than I do again in a friendly match against Turkey for Scotland. And Celtic have obviously got a big duty here, going over to Australia. They've marketed this event for months. They've got a team there that the Australian fans are dying to see. Why would they then strip away some of the players who these Australian fans have been watching to say, I go play against Turkey, we'll just shove out the B team players? Doesn't work like that. We're already shortening the Australians a little bit by not having the World Cup players there, which we can't do nothing about and wouldn't do anyway, because the World Cup's a massive opportunity. But why then would we take away the Scottish players for a meaningless friendly and let down more people? I just don't understand the thinking of some folk. Like, why? Who cares? If Rangers decided, okay, we're going to go and play friendlies, and they had it all organised, the flights were booked, and fans had their tickets and all the rest of it, and they said, actually, do you know what? We don't want Ryan Jack or such going to that game. I would not even bat an eyelid. I wouldn't bat an eyelid. I'm being serious. I know it's easier said than done. You maybe have to put yourself in the situation to actually see if you would do that, but genuinely, why would I care? Be different if it was a qualifying game, would be different if it was an actual tournament, but the fact is a friendly, you've got to ask yourself the question, does it matter? Ange Postecoglou had something to say on the matter. He did come out and respond to Steve Clarke's comments. He said, from our perspective, the Australian trip is an important part of our football club and we want to take our strongest possible team there. We will always be supportive of the national team and Steve Clarke. He's always been great with us in terms of relationship with the club. But all of our players who won't be going to the World Cup will be coming with us. We're obviously taking a team to Australia. People have bought tickets and want to see the best possible Celtic side. Obviously, we can't take the players who are going to the World Cup, but we have obligations there to the people who have spent the money that we go there with the strongest possible team, and that is what we'll be doing. He also added comments along the lines of, Celtic and Ange have to deal with players going on international duty when they'd rather they wouldn't, and then they come back injured or they don't even compete for Scotland. And realistically, and I don't mean to sound harsh on our players because they're great and they deserve more chances for Scotland, but realistically, they're not going to play in that friendly, and if they do, it'll be 10 minutes max, I'd reckon. Because there's preferred choices over Ralston for Steve Clarke, there's preferred choices over Taylor for Steve Clarke, and there's preferred choices for over Turnbull for Steve Clarke. So they're not even going to play that much. So why would Celtic then sacrifice taking them on a trip that will do them the world of good, keeps them with the squad, keeps their fitness up, keeps them just in the system, and obviously the benefits for the Australians as well? Why would they suddenly just let them go out of that? And that's what I don't think that fans of other sides and fans who are butthurt about this are refusing to accept or understand. Now, the big thing was, today it was announced that Sead Haksabanovic will be joining up with the Montenegro national side before the World Cup, or during the World Cup I should say, when they aren't playing competitive football, which of course kind of contradicts everything that both Ange was saying and myself is saying here. Now, there has been nothing said on it yet. I can't tell what the reasoning is why he's going, and for example, we're not letting players go with Scotland. Ange hasn't commented on it as of yet either, but obviously discussions happen between football organisations and the club. There probably will be a reason there why Sead has been taken. Maybe their game holds a bigger importance than what Scotland's does against Turkey, but we can only wait and see. It does kind of contradict everything, and I'm not going to deny that it doesn't, but I don't see any reason as to why the Scotland boys should be forced to go and join the Scottish national team on an international friendly that was organised a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't make sense to me. Plus, if any of our lads were to get injured, I'd rather they got injured with Celtic than they did with Scotland. I don't want them injured at all. I don't want any injuries, but I'd rather that. Anyway, that about does it, I think, for today. That's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. The game last night, Dyson Maeda's praise, Ange versus Stevie Clarke. Who are you taking? Who's your bet slip on? Surely Ange. It's got to be Ange. Steve Clarke, I don't think he could fight his way to a wet paper bag. I think Steve Clarke would probably throw a couple, to be fair, but Ange has got his number every day of the week. That's us for today. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. We'd be much appreciated. I'll see you all next time.